Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Daily Playbook. We have a couple Saturday games here, and there's no major updates to the tool other than what I had from Thursday. So let's not waste any more time and get right into the numbers. Getting into our first game, you have Houston going to LA, where LA is favored on the money line with a spread of 1.5 and a total line of 39.5. Here's your team seasonal averages, which match up to the rankings, and we'll walk through this starting with Houston and their offense, which is a little below average with a scoring rank of 19, a passing rank of 12, and a rushing rank of 22. Defensively, it's one of the best teams in the league, with an allowed scoring rank of 1, allowed passing rank of 6, and allowed rushing rank of 4. For our Chargers, you have a bit of a better offense, with a scoring rank of 17, a passing rank of 10, and a rushing rank of 6. And defensively, they're also pretty good, not quite as good as Houston, but they have an allowed scoring rank of 8, allowed passing rank of 5, and allowed rushing rank of 10. For your quarterbacks, you have CJ Stroud and Justin Herbert, with Stroud averaging about 14.8 fantasy points per game, and Justin Herbert averaging about 18.1. Here's their individual seasonal averages. And looking at turnovers, you have CJ Stroud with 6 interceptions and no other turnovers this season. And you have Herbert with 12 interceptions and 1 fumble lost due to a sack, as well as 1 rushing fumble. For their share of rushing, you get CJ Stroud with about 11.6% of the rushing carry share and 14.1% of the rushing yard share. And for Herbert, you have him at 19.2% of the rushing carry share and 25% of the rushing yard share. Your running backs are Woody Marks and Amarian Hampton, with Marks averaging about 9.3 fantasy points per game and Hampton at 14.4. Once again, here's their data. And neither running back has lost any turnovers this season, so I'll go right to the charts. So go ahead and pause the video if you want to look at any more of this data in detail. But looking at their share, you have Woody Marks with 46.4% of the rushing carry share and 40.4% of the rushing yard share, with the next largest portion being about a third of the carries and a third of the rushing yards, and that goes to Nick Chubb. For Hampton, he's at 27.4% of the rushing carry share and 28% of the rushing yard share, which is pretty small for a starter, but that's because he was out for several weeks, and that's why Kamani Vidal has this larger portion here at almost 38% and 34%. For your receivers, you have Nico Collins and Ladd McConkey. Collins averages 15.5 fantasy points per game, and Ladd McConkey's at about 11.8. I'll flip over for their seasonal averages, and noting that the only turnover comes from Nico Collins with 1 receiving fumble. And otherwise, we'll move right to the charts, where you have Nico Collins at 26.1% of the target share and 32.9% of the receiving yard share, which makes him the most targeted receiver and has the most receiving yards on the team. For Ladd McConkey, you have him at 24.1% of the target share and 22.9% of the receiving yard share, which makes him the second most productive receiver for the Chargers. Next up, we have our number 2 receivers with Jaden Higgins and Quentin Johnson, with Higgins averaging about 6.8 fantasy points per game and Quentin Johnson averaging about 13. Here are your seasonal averages for the two of them, and the only turnover between the two comes from Quentin Johnson with 1 receiving fumble. For their share, you have Jaden Higgins at 13.3% of the target share and 12.9% of the receiving yard share, and then for Quentin Johnson, he's at 17.6% of the target share and 19.2% of the receiving yard share. And it's interesting to note that the most productive receiver in LA is actually Keenan Allen, with about 25% of the target share and 21.8% of the receiving yard share. And then you have your tight ends with Dalton Schultz and Oronde Gadsden, with Schultz averaging 10.7 fantasy points per game and Gadsden averaging about 8.8. One more time, flipping over their averages, and the only turnover between the two tight ends comes from Gadsden with 1 receiving fumble. For their share, you have Dalton Schultz at 22.1% of the target share and 21.3% of the receiving yard share, which makes him the second most productive receiver in Houston. And for Gadsden, you're at 14.1% of the target share and 18.4% of the receiving yard share. So that wraps up all the individual data for all the skill players that I have. Just quickly looking at how they match up, you have the Chargers with a pretty good offense, a little bit better offense than Houston here, although they're going against one of the best defenses, especially the best defense in the league at stopping opponents from scoring, while they only have a scoring rank of 17. And vice versa, you have a little bit worse offense against a little bit worse defense, even though it's still pretty good. With this allowed scoring rank of 8 against this scoring rank of 19 is a little bit more favorable for Houston, I think. However, Houston does fall a little shorter here in its passing ranks and rushing ranks against their corresponding defensive ranks with the Chargers. So I can see this being a really close game. It's really tough to say just based on these numbers, but if you were to stack them up, I would kind of lean more towards Houston, especially because of this defense. But it should be a real close one, and it'll be an interesting one to see. And there you have it for your Saturday games. I hope that you enjoyed and got something out of it, and if you did, leave a like and subscribe. And leave a comment on what other information you want to see in the future. But other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the Saturday night game. Just quickly flashing up all the defensive data. I'll go through them one by one, and you can pause the video if you want to look at any of it in more detail. But otherwise, we're starting here with our left defensive ends. Unfortunately, I still have this issue where I'm missing a few players, and I'll have to figure that out. I don't have a left defensive tackle or a right defensive tackle or the middle linebacker for the Chargers. So with that noted, that's why we'll just have our left defensive tackle for Houston. Your right defensive tackle. Your right defensive ends. Your weak side linebackers. Your middle linebacker. Your strong side linebackers. These are your left side cornerbacks. And these are your strong safeties. The free safeties. Your right side cornerbacks. And then finally your nickelbacks.